morning.
Good morning.
And thank you for inviting me to speak. Thank you to Donna and Jim, and thank you for Unity of the Eastern Shores. And it's my opportunity on this 4th of July weekend to share my message with the two Unity communities of Baldwin County.
Yes.
Yay. And I really miss seeing everybody and getting the hugs and holding hands and having potlucks and going out to lunch. But we're also very blessed by this technology that allows us to connect in this way. So thank you again for asking me. And so this is 4th of July weekend, and yesterday, next slide please, on July the 4th, 1776, our forefathers came together and wrote these very lofty words. We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, that they are endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. And these really sound like it sounds like almost a divine proclamation. And when you think about it, you think that our Thomas Jefferson and all of those wonderful forefathers that we admire so much must have really had a deep knowledge of spiritual principles. And perhaps they were inspired by Genesis, where it tells us, next slide. I just want to go like this, next slide, okay. And in Genesis it says, and then God said, let us make humankind in our image. And then also we go to our Christian scriptures, and it says in the book of John that I am in them and you in me, that they may become completely one, that the world may know that you have sent me and have loved them as you have loved me. So it had a sense of oneness, a sense of that we're all connected, that we're all equal. And then you go to the data about what was life like in 1776 in colonial America, and we realize that it was only landowners and it was only males who were able to vote. And the signers of the Declaration of Independence were white, wealthy landowners who were mainly Protestant. And we think that over these 244 years that we have made some progress. We now, in theory, all have the ability to vote, have the privilege to vote. And we also have made a lot of strides in women's rights. We've made a lot of strides in gay and lesbian rights, that people are now able to connect legally with the person that they love, not be discriminated for employment because they are gay or lesbian. And those are things that are all good in theory. And recently we've seen some of the dismantling of some of our symbols, the tearing down of monuments that represented hate and disconnection. However, we do have a way to go. I heard a story recently about a preschool teacher who was giving a presentation on the 4th of July. And she told all the children about our history, how we had, that we rebelled against taxation without representation, and that it was the desire of the colonists to be able to have church, to worship in any way they wanted, not to be dictated by the British government. And so she went on to tell the children about how when they go to their picnics or to their parades or see their fireworks on the 4th of July, that they can all celebrate that they're free. And Johnny was sitting in the circle and he raised his hand, teacher, 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 I'm not free. I had my birthday, I'm 4.
I would be free again.
Okay. And then I've always been touched by the Statue of Liberty. The first time I saw it and the words that it speaks, the poem really. And it says, give me your tired, your poor, your huddled masses yearning to breathe free, yearning to breathe free. The wretched refuse of your teeming shore, send these, the homeless, Tempest tossed to me, I lift my lamp beside the golden door. And I guess what struck me was the line, yearning to breathe free. And what we're facing today in our environment, first of all, a virus that affects our ability to breathe, and then the picture of George Floyd begging to be allowed to breathe. And that is really a right for all of us to be able to breathe free. And so I have another story, and it has to do with a tiger. Oh, okay, I forgot to ask the question. How would you define freedom? And do you feel free? Do you feel free to breathe freely without obstruction? And I was thinking, as I was writing this, about the Janis Joplin song, Me and My Bobby McGee, and there's a line in there, freedom's just another word for nothing left to lose. And what does that really mean? And we're going to talk about that a little bit later. And in Washington, D.C. in the 1960s, there was a beautiful Bengal tiger. She was white, and she was beautiful. And she was given to President Eisenhower as a gift. And she was kept in the National Zoo. And she was the #1 attraction. Everybody came to see Mohini, this beautiful, elegant tiger. And so they decided that they were going to build her a beautiful habitat where she could run free without obstruction. She didn't have to have bars or be in a cage or anything along those lines. And so they got botanists and they got landscape architects all together, and they designed this beautiful natural habitat. And it took quite a few months before it was established. And so they had to put Mohini in a 12 by 12 foot cage. And then there was much excitement when it was time to bring Mohini to visit the habitat for the first time. And there was a lot of publicity, and the cameras were there, and the press was there. And they brought Mohini to the beautiful habitat, and she walked right over. This is what the habitat looked like, something like that. I don't know, it was natural and beautiful. And she walked right over to a wall that they'd also constructed to keep it apart from the rest of the zoo. And she began pacing. And she had the pacing pattern that she had been controlled in her cell, 12 feet, continually around and around and around. Now, all of the zookeepers attempted to urge her and encourage her to explore her beautiful natural habitat, but it is said that for the rest of her life, Mohini continued this pattern, walking around this 12-foot enclosure within this beautiful habitat. So we are like Mohini in many ways. I'd just like to do just a little bit of an experiment with you. I'd like you to clasp your hands together and just watch which thumb goes on the top. For me, it was my left over my right. How about you and Jim and Donna?
It's my right.
So try to do it the other way.
Oh, it feels weird.
It feels very uncomfortable. It feels very uncomfortable. So this is a demonstration about how difficult change is for us and how easy it is to fall into patterns that we've established without really thinking. And so we can think of being enclosed in this narrow space like Mohini as sort of how we're socialized as infants. So it begins with our parents, who also have been conditioned with limiting beliefs. And it continues with school and society. And what we don't question becomes part of our unconscious belief systems. Assumptions that we make about our world that we really have no idea where they came from. And I have no intention to criticize our teachers and our parents, because they were just teaching us what they were taught. And there's no room for guilt or blame or shame for ourselves over these situations. But I think that often we have these assumptions and beliefs and we don't know where they came from. And they're limiting to ourselves and to others. They cause us to be rigid and have closed hearts. They become the voice in our head, the monkey mind, the critic, the committee, that makes us compare and label and judge and make others wrong and us right. And it's done in such very subtle ways. Now, I tell a story about my childhood, how this was done in very subtle ways. And I was raised as a Roman Catholic, Irish Roman Catholic little girl, attending Catholic schools and having the Irish Catholic culture as my ethnicity. I don't know what the next, okay, not ready for the next. And I had a grandma, we called her Nana, my father's mother. And she used to like to tell us stories, and she was very funny, and she told stories and jokes. And this is one of the little riddle type things that she told us. It was about a little boy going to confession, and the little boy says, Father, I killed a cat. Oh, my son, what a grave sin is that. But Father, it was a Protestant cat. Oh, my son, there's no sin in that. So those are the subtle ways I was taught that being Catholic was somehow better than being Protestant. Very subtle. Unaware of it, until I was met other people that were outside of my scope of environment. The neighborhood I lived in was mainly Catholic. Most of the children went to the Catholic schools. Most of them were Catholic, and many of them were also Irish. And then also in my Catholic school upbringing, on Friday every week in the primary grades, the sisters would tell us, tidy up your desks and be really careful about where you place things, because the public school children are coming in this weekend and they don't have the same advantages as you do. Now, several of us heard this and we would write notes, stay out of my stuff. And then on Monday we'd get in trouble for it. And the sister not realizing that is what she taught us, to look down on what she labeled as disadvantaged. Of course, in reality, they were in no way disadvantaged. And so our well-intentioned parents and teachers and leaders have led us to continue beliefs that do not express the truth of whom we are. We are beings of light and love. We're a wave in the ocean of God. We're a beam in the sun of God. We are pure light, and within that pure light is all the spectrum of colors, the whole rainbow of colors within us. We just don't look deep enough to see it. Now, I was given a suggestion for a book study by Reverend Donna Mullis, and she said there's a book called White Fragility, and she thought it would be really a wonderful book study for our groups. And I got the book, I put it on my Kindle, and I began reading it. It made me really angry. It made me really, really angry. I thought, she's not right. I'm not prejudiced. I have black friends. I have friends of all different cultures. I work with African American people of color. This is not me. And then I realized that just that reaction was exactly what white fragility is. Let's go to the next slide. And so our beliefs do lead us to the white fragility quote. Did I miss that? Oh, I didn't send it to you, I'm sorry. So this is what Robin DiAngelo says. We are socialized into a deeply internalized sense of superiority that we are either unaware of or cannot admit to ourselves. We become fragile about race, and that was my reaction. I was becoming fragile about race. And so we cannot blame ourselves or our parents or our teachers or society. We cannot get caught up in guilt or shame or blame. We just have to accept it. And we have to have a willingness to look deeply at ourselves and our world. In Unity, we have, for the theme, they have a theme every year, and the theme for 2020 is 2020 Vision. 2020 Vision. So the Unity of Gulf Shores group is doing a book study again on white fragility. It just started on last Wednesday, so you're open to join it. We didn't really get into the chapters yet. We just had kind of an open discussion of the book. And so as I was reading the book, the first time I read it, I thought, well, the author doesn't really have she doesn't have the spiritual dimension present in the book, because she's a sociologist, and she does workshops and things on this topic. So after reading the book the second time, I decided it was up to me to try to discover some spiritual solutions. And so I'm going to share them with you, and they're nothing exquisite or wonderful, or they're just what my heart is pulling me to do. And so I think that we first of all have to open our eyes and our hearts and our minds, and we have to acknowledge the reality of the discrimination that continues in our world, and that is in our hearts. And so we open our physical eyes and we really look at our brothers and sisters of color. We dialogue with them. I think you can hear the soul of a person through really good fiction. So I would suggest some of the authors that I like, authors of color, Toni Morrison, James Baldwin, Alice Walker. I'm sure there's very many more that I have not read, but those are some of them. Read White Fragility. It's probably going to trigger you like it triggered me, but it has such wonderful wisdom. It forces us to truly look deeply into ourselves. Amazon and Netflix have specials now. They have the Black Lives Matter specials. And you can look there and you can find wonderful movies like Selma and 13 and Just Mercy. You could watch them for weeks. You could go through this whole quarantine just watching these films that truly give you some empathy for growing up as an African American child in our world today. So we have to admit that we've developed these patterns in our thinking, and we can change those patterns. We can, the next slide is about our spiritual vision, seen through the lens of our spiritual vision. And so we can open our eyes and hearts and remember we are the light of the world. We are. And we look deeply into ourselves. That's what the spiritual vision is. And recognize our error thoughts, recognize our misperceptions, our error thoughts, our belief in separation, our belief that we can be in any way separate from God or from each other. That is the true, if there's any sin, that is what the sin of humanity is. And we, do I have another? Okay, I'm out of sync with the slides. Did I read the Charles Fillmore quote?
No. Oh,
no?
You want to?
Yeah, I'm going to read the Romans. So this is, we can change our thinking, we can change our minds. So this is from Romans 12:2. Do not conform to the patterns of this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind. Then you will be able to test and approve that God's will is His good, pleasing, and perfect will. And this is from Charles Fillmore saying the same thing in a little bit different words. God is omnipresent, but we have hedged ourselves about in a world of illusion. We've created that 12-foot square, our own creating, and through its mists, we cannot see God or catch the light from the superconscious mind. So our beliefs have closed us off to God. We're not perhaps aware of it, but that is what happened. So we have the 2020 vision. We use our physical eyes, and we open the eyes of our heart and our soul. We admit that we've been enculturated to be racists. We have white fragility, and at the same time, we can be anti-racist. It's a little bit of a conflictual concept, but it's so, so true, unless we really acknowledge it ourselves. And so I like to, do I have a picture of the onion?
Yes.
Right there.
Yeah, okay. So I like to use, I like the picture of the onion, that if you peel away the layers of the onion and you get to the core. So we have a lot of layers to peel away. Our layers of our prejudices that we were taught, our misperceptions, our judgments, our poor opinions of ourselves, our poor opinions of others, all of those things. And so our belief in separation, all of our error thoughts, and really realize at the core of the onion, use it as an analogy, at the core of the onion is the truth of who we are, that we're created in the image and likeness of love. And it's for us to bring that light into the world, to forgive ourselves, to forgive everybody else, to appreciate everybody, and to love, and to love. And then I go back to the song, freedom's just another word for nothing left to lose. When we can lose all those layers of the onion, what is left? Do I have the card? We are created in the image. Oh, okay. And we have the courage to say these things. We have the courage to admit we were wrong. The courage to say, in the light of that new information, I have changed my mind. Oh, I didn't know that before. I guess I was wrong. It takes a lot of courage to do these things. From the evidence provided, it appears that I need to rethink things. You make a strong argument. I consider what you said. I can't support my opinion. I don't know why I think that way. I never thought of it that way. Thank you. Now I will. So we open ourselves up. We become vulnerable. We become authentic. We become the Christ in our world. And we are created in the image and likeness of love, intelligence, compassion, joy, creativity, and beauty. And we are co-created agents for God, source, or first cause. And it is my belief that on a very, very deep level, we have a memory of this. A memory when we were part of oneness, when we were part of God. And this is something beautiful that I love from A Course in Miracles. And it says, listen, perhaps you catch a hint of an ancient state, not quite forgotten, dim perhaps, and yet not altogether unfamiliar, like a song whose name is long forgotten, and the circumstances in which you heard completely unremembered. Not the whole song has stayed with you, but just a little wisp of melody, attached not to a person or place or anything particular. But you remember from just this little part how lovely was the song, how wonderful the setting, and how you love those who were there with you. The notes are nothing, yet you have kept them with you, not for themselves, but as a soft reminder of what would make you weep if you remembered how dear it was to you. You could remember, yet you are afraid, believing you would lose the world you learned since then, and yet you know that nothing in the world you learned is half so dear as this. Listen and see if you remember an ancient song you learned so long ago and held more dear. Beyond the body, beyond the sun and stars, past everything you see, and yet somehow familiar, is an arc of golden light that stretches as far as you look into a great and shining circle, and all the circle fills with light before your eyes. The edges of the circle disappear, and what is in it no longer contained at all. The light expands and covers everything, extending infinity forever, shining and with no break or limit everywhere. Within it, everything is joined in perfect continuity, nor is it possible to imagine that anything could be outside, because there is nowhere that this light is not. This is the vision of the Son of God, the daughters of God too, for whom you know well. Here is the sight of him who knows his Creator. Here is the memory of what you are, a part of this, a part of this. All joined to all, surely as all is joined in you, except the vision that you can show to this. You know the ancient song, you know it well. And now the blind can see, for that same song they sing in honor of their Creator gives praise to them as well. The blindness that they made will not withstand the memory of this song, and they will look upon the vision, remembering He who is they sing. What a miracle is this remembering, and who is there in whom this memory lies not? The light in one awakens it in all, and when you can see it for your brother, you remembering for everyone. And let's just take a deep breath, and let's go into meditation. I invite you now to gently close your outer eyes and just take a deep breath. And allow your physical body to relax. And I invite you to focus on your heart space. With an awareness that there is a wisdom and intelligence in our hearts that far exceeds the wisdom and intelligence of our intellect alone. And sometimes we think that we're just one person. We're just one person. But we are that one person. I matter. What I do impacts the lives of all around us. I see. I truly see. I see you and me, and together we can make a difference. And let us dream together. What if everyone in the world got together? We could change the climate and the weather. We could create peace and harmony. If we just stay in our hearts, stay out of our heads. Our world can be a place overflowing with God's grace. Let us rest in the silence. In a dream, I saw how the world could be if everyone was free from prejudice, hunger, war, or fear, knowing God's presence is everywhere. In my dream, I traveled around the earth, watching peace, love, and harmony give birth. Seeing people gather and grasp each other's hand in the Arctic, the desert, the beaches, and prairie lands. Faces of ebony, bronze to ivory white, listening and seeing with spiritual sight, generating healing energy that as a mist lifts above and showers the earth with the scent of love. And remember, you are created in the image of love, intelligence, and joy. God bless you.